So I would like to see Tempe really focus on providing more elder care communities and housing.
Affordable,
more affordable, or
My
even
mom
friendship.
actually works in senior living.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about it because it is also expensive to move
It
into
is
Friendship Village as well.
expensive to move into Friendship Village.
yeah.
I mean, and there's a wait list. Like, we need to
For
make
a
sure
very
that
long
these
wait
people
list,
can
right.
age in the community that they love.
Welcome back to the Around the Districts podcast. I'm here for part 2 with Brooke St, who's running for Tempe City Council. She is a Tempe resident, grew up in Arizona, so she's an Arizona native, and she wants to help better the city as a whole. So tell me, Brooke, what is your stance? What are your stances that you are running on for Tempe City Council?
I would say my top three, and the first one is, I think, held by all of the non-incumbents that are running. We are all very concerned about affordable housing in the city. We were talking last episode about the development projects and how Tempe has to build up, and they have to be smart about the way they provide additional housing. But making sure that's affordable. And we're a little bit stymied from the state level. They restrict us from requiring developers to provide affordable housing. So we need to get creative about how we do that and make sure that residents can afford to live in the place that they work and play. So affordable housing is top of mine. I like to think of, maybe we need to look at more social housing models, more city-owned housing, because if the city owns the housing, we can impose rent control. Whereas if it's privately held, we do not have the ability to require something like that. So there are some ways that we can get creative about it. So affordable housing is up there, but you're going to hear that from all of the candidates. Yeah. I mean, it's just a huge concern for everyone right now.
Well, and we know corporations are buying homes, jacking up the prices. There was that whole thing with whatever those 3 rental apartments that were getting together
and kind of the price fixing on the rent. Yeah.
So we saw that as well. But yeah, so I mean, those are some things to obviously look at as well, because it is unaffordable. It's. I mean, I bought my house 20 years ago. I've lived in this house for 20 years. So it wasn't intentional. I mean, I bought the house and then 2008, the crash happened. So I kind of got stuck here, which, blessing and a curse, because now here, I have a house that's almost paid off and I don't have to buy another home, but it's not easy for people. Okay. So you said 3 things.
Yeah. So it's not easy for people. And I think, and a lot of that is beyond the city's control.
Right.
That's, if we're going to stop corporate investment, that's going to have to happen at the state and federal level. And that's not something the city's going to be able to do, but we can, like I said, try to get creative about how to still help our residents within the confines of state law. My second thing would be just transparency and accountability and integrity in City Hall. I think right now, from what I've heard feedback from the public, they're very frustrated with what seems like this 7-0 voting block on our city council, that they're not seeing debate about any of the issues or things, that they're not seeing that publicly. That feels to them like that's happening behind closed doors, and then they just come out with this is how it is, and they're not feeling like they're really a part of that process, or like they're feeling like the wool is being pulled over their eyes a little bit. So I would like to restore that sort of debate on the dais, to openly talk about some of these issues so that the public feels like there's some transparency there. And lastly, so let me backtrack to that. I also would just like to see a lot more community input in how the decisions are made, and at an earlier stage in the process. I mean, right now, a development project will go before the Development Review Commission right before it comes to City Council. I would like to see our community have input on development projects much further back in the process, before that, developer has spent $100,000 on a plan. Let's not waste your time or money. Let's take that community input at an early stage and really develop things that are going to be beneficial for everyone. But then the final thing is, and I feel like this is kind of just my own personal issue, is elder care in our community. Every time I'm out there knocking doors, and this has been the case for the past 5 years, 60% of the doors I knock are an elderly resident in their 80s or 90s living alone in a house. And I think that comes back. I mean, I know this podcast is called Around the Districts. Like, that is really causing what we're seeing in the decline of school enrollment, right? We all know this, that it's like when these people, they moved into their house in the 70s and 80s, they don't want to go anywhere. And I don't blame them, but that doesn't help new families move into that neighborhood and populate those schools. So now we're facing what we're facing with Kyrene. Um, at the same time, like my mom she's a widow now. She sold her house backing up to Wagner and KMS in the spring of this year, and had to move to Chandler. She couldn't afford to stay in Tempe. Luckily, I kept her.
Which is also a reason people stay in their homes. They stay in their homes because
homes.
they can't afford to.
They can't afford to leave. And so I would like to see Tempe really focus on providing more elder care communities and housing. Affordable, not
elder
like
care.
Sorry, not Mirabella, which I'm sure is lovely for those that can afford it, but more affordable. Or
My
even
mom
friendship
actually works in senior living.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that.
No, we're not going to talk about it because it is also expensive to move into Friendship Village as well.
To move into Friendship Village, I mean, and there's a wait list. Like we need to make sure that these people can age in the community that they love. I don't want them to have to fling out to far-flung places just because they can't afford to stay in Tempe.
Yeah,
I want to be compassionate about that, but at the same time, make sure that we're providing programming for them so that I know that a lot of them are lonely.
Very, right? You know, I was going to touch on this, and now that you said that, I have to interject because my neighbor, he's 80 years old. His wife passed away 4 years ago, and he's been living alone since then. But like I said, I moved into this neighborhood 20 years ago, so I was a wee young pup, and all of my neighbors were very old. Right. Well, I thought they were old. Sure. I was 22, so they were all ancient. But, you know, over the years, I have seen them kind of one by one pass away. Mm-hmm. And they lived in there. I mean, he bought that house in 1982. He has lived there since then. That is, you know, yes. He was the original owner of that house. And that was a lot of the people in my neighborhood, a lot of them. I mean, and it's been very sad to watch them go. And I know that there are still a few that are still here and, you know, hopefully they will be around for a lot longer. But what I do have seen, especially because my neighborhood is a little bit more affordable, is young families move in here. But I do know that, you know, these people have stayed in their homes and lived in their homes because they're paid off. They paid $40,000, $50,000 for them. No joke. And, you know, they can't afford to go anywhere else. And a lot of times don't want to. Right. You know, what are their options, you know? So it is sad. They are lonely. They should have more options. I know he's lonely. It makes me very sad. I stop over there and I'll take him brownies or lemon bars or just go over there just to have conversation with him. But yeah, I mean, it is important to help people age gracefully and give them a place to live and also make that affordable as well.
And make it affordable. But also to address the loneliness crisis is, you know, we've got Pile Adult Center in Tempe. We've got programs, but it requires them going someplace. And I want to know how we can get creative in bringing some of that programming or some of that engagement into our neighborhoods so that they can even I feel like lately people just don't even know their neighbors. Yeah. You know, unless they've lived there for 40 years.
My parents have lived in their house for 30 years and we know two of them never speak to either of them. Yeah. I mean, it's like you drive right into your garage. This is a terrible story about me. One of my little old neighbors, he passed away last year, but I, again, lived here forever. I've driven this road. And when my ex was living here with me, he was like, you ever notice that little old man across the street? Every night he pulls out his rocking chair and his blanket and smokes his cigars. And I was like, never seen him in my life. I don't know what you're talking about. And like, horrible, how horrible of me that I never saw this guy, because I pull into my garage, I close the door behind me, and you know, I do know a lot of my neighbors now, but I never thought, I was like, wow, why would I know that guy? And he's like, he's out there every night. Every single night. He goes out there by himself in his rocking chair.
Did your ex ever go over and strike up a conversation?
Yeah.
Well, good on him then, I guess.
Yeah. But, you know, apparently I'm not a nice person. I don't know. But so you're obviously passionate about that. Are there other things that you're very passionate about and are a driver for you to want to be such a part of city council and run for office?
Absolutely. I would think probably the thing that drove me to do this is is the divide that we are seeing between the mutual aid organizations that operate in Tempe and City Hall. And that has been an issue for a few years now, where they cleared out the river bottom where a lot of our unhoused were living down in the Salt River a couple of years ago. And ever since then, there has just been this kind of growing fight over who gets to provide services. And the city wants to be the one to provide all the services, but we've got mutual aid organizations out there that are already doing the work, that have developed relationships with these folks that don't necessarily trust the city services. Because when you show up to a homeless encampment with the cops, they're freaked out. But they know this guy over here that comes and brings them food once a week, he's safe and I can trust him. And so how can we get back into the sandbox? I'm going to quote Catherine Cuvelis-Edick, who runs Eros Foundation here and in the city of Tempe, and has for many years, helping our less fortunate neighbors. How can we all come back into the sandbox? How can the city support the mutual aid groups that are doing the work? Instead of dividing the resources, I feel like we need to be combining them and supporting each other to help our most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And that issue is kind of what drove me to actually run. And then as I'm looking at all of the issues, I'm kind of like, this is an issue. And I find that it's all cyclical. The housing crisis is causing the homelessness crisis. It's causing clearing the river bottom, put all of the unhoused back into our city parks, which then the neighbors are complaining, so, yeah. I mean, and regardless of how we got here,
you need to find a solution.
These are the problems, right, and we need to find solutions. Right. And the old ways of doing things aren't working anymore because we're not living in 1980 anymore. So we need to get creative about moving forward as a city.
Yeah, I love that. So you have a couple of events coming up?
I do. Well, I have a canvas every Saturday morning. We launch at 9 a.m. at different parks around the city. And so this Saturday, we are going to be, I believe, at Hanger Park in Warner Ranch at 9 a.m. And we gather and just a group of volunteers gets together and I hand out like, all right, here are the houses. Here's the doors you're going to go knock on. Here's your petitions. Right now, I'm still gathering signatures. I have about 775 that I have verified are good, but I need at least 954. I'm going for 1,300 by November 10th. So, yeah, I'm still in the gathering the signatures so that I can be on the ballot and actually hopefully get elected in March. I also have, so I announce the canvases every week on Facebook. So my Facebook is Brooke for Tempe. You can go there and you'll see that to find out where our next canvas is. And then on October 22nd, there's going to be an open house meet and greet at the home of Amanda Schneider. I don't know if you guys know her, but she's the executive director of the nonprofit Amplified Voices. Okay. And she is a supporter and a new friend of mine, but she is excited. Her and her neighbor, Carrie Hill, are hosting an open house for their neighbors and friends to just come, let's talk, let's meet me and talk about solutions and see why you might want to support me for council. So that'll be on October 22nd, right near Kyrene and Elliott.
And that's on your Facebook as well?
And that is also on my Facebook.
And you have a website.
And then I have a website, brook4tempe.com, and you can put the word 4 or you can put the number 4. It all goes to the same place, but brook4tempe.com. And if you're interested in signing my petition, you can find a link to that on my website.
Yep.
As well as just reach out to me or subscribe to my newsletter, and then you'll be informed about all the events.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can get some more people to sign your petition. But you can find that online too. So you can sign that online. It doesn't have to be in person.
Correct.
And if you want to volunteer for her campaign or help out with canvassing, that would be amazing too, I'm sure. But let's get you on the ballot. Let's get you, voted into office and making change for the city of Tempe. I live in Owatuki, but my business is in Tempe. So it does affect a lot of people that I see every single day. So, but we really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
If you want to sign her petition, go on her website. We'll have the link in the show notes for you, so you can find that right there. But thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, comment, share your thoughts. This is the Around the District podcast, and we'll see you next time.